once again to a daily reading from the Dragon Within Saga, Book 1, Convergence. You can find it online on my website, which will be in the description below, dragonwithin.org. Pretty easy to remember, but it'll be in the description nonetheless. And today we're going to go ahead and pick up and start actually Chapter 4, where we start our hearing about Intelos, who is the Grand Wizard of the University. So we're going to dive right in and start right here. There he sat, alone in the early hours before daylight, as wizards often do, to escape the mundane workings of the waking world, most often designed to pull his attention away from furthering his knowledge. And now, with the class of his new initiates set to begin in a few short hours, and his responsibilities as both Grand Wizard of the University of Knowledge and a Grand Wizard of the Council of Knowledge at their peaks, his dedicated allotment of time to indulge in the progression of his knowledge for personal improvement was sure to be limited severely. He sighed as he slowly resigned to the fact that his understanding and hence subsequent control of time would have to wait yet again. But he was so close to unraveling its mystery to further explore the possibilities of projecting through, whether it be forward or backward, its substance. Since his first initial thought that time in any tangible form did not exist in terms of our five defined senses, he began to look for other explanations for our belief in its unquestioned passage. After all, the true test of existence is seated firmly in life's presentation to our senses, and subsequently, our ability to know. And that is when it occurred to him. The only visitation we can have as mortals, and many of the numerous immortals, with events gone past or events yet to come, is when we visit either our memories or hopes respectively. Because our minds, through the intricate processes we employ, can recall images, feelings, emotions, tastes, and smells so vividly, there must be something within the mind that perceives not only the passage of time, but its subsequent storage. Yet beyond that, there must be something forged within us that innately comprehends the very nature of time and all things concerning its relevant constraints. One cannot manipulate something with any amount of success without understanding its nature first. When time passes, even in our first moments of intellectual awareness, we do not need to learn about it to know that something, once it happens, is not continuing to happen and has passed into something we have indiscriminately named the past. We do not confuse things that have occurred as something that is either yet to occur or something currently occurring. We are able, quite readily and easily, to keep them all segmented, preventing any and all blending. However, there are those individuals who have ceased their normal, if there is such a thing, mental faculties, preventing their progress through the separate moments of their lives and have become stuck or trapped within the past. For any number of reasons, their minds have lost, covered, or rejected the innate knowledge of time and have, as a horrific result, failed to progress. Not because of their inability to move beyond a specific event, but because they no longer know how. It would be similar to someone suffocating because the involuntary connections allowing unconscious breathing have been disrupted. One would remember the need to breathe, maybe even the knowledge of how to breathe, but unless concentrated upon, they would fail because they could not access the unconscious pathways allowing their survival without conscious concentration. But what is the conscious mind without the subconscious mind? And if something was not in the conscious, could it be seated and grown within the subconscious without actual conscious effort? Because we do not concentrate upon time, it is something derived from our subconscious, or does it really even exist at all? And if it does exist, does it mean we can revisit the moments of our lives and actually change them? Or even a more daunting question comes from the assumption of the latter is true. If we can visit the past, can we visit the future? Assuming time does exist creates yet another derivative one should ask altogether. At what point did time begin its existence? So many questions to answer and knowledge to obtain, yet he was always pulled back to the reality of his time, whether it existed or not that there was simply just not enough of it. He smiled at himself, as he often did, when he was wrapped up within his mind as it led him back to the genesis of his original mental inquiry. His progression into time was indeed going to have to wait, as in a couple of short hours he was going to find himself standing in front of a new class of initiates. The responsibility of being the first impact upon their young and impressionable minds was one he took very seriously. After all, identified as the leader of the wizards in Avendia, if he did not exemplify the numerous characteristics a true wizard should seek to display by leading from the very beginning, how could he expect those he was given charge to lead to follow? Reflecting back to his first lecture as a recipient, he grinned slightly as he remembered his first instructor and how integral the old wizard had been at prompting the idea that knowledge, above all else, was the serious wizard's first responsibility. Because of this, original instructor Darkinian the Great, he decided to take it upon himself to play a very active role in not only the policy setting and the determination of curriculum for the university, but also its propagation through direct classroom teaching. He could still remember his mentor's first words as he sat apprehensively awaiting the beginning of the new life that was promised him. Even though the activation of the talent relented the physical and mental effects of time, Darkinian was so old that not even the magical effects could hide his substantially advanced age. Yet he still walked with a deep purpose when he entered the study room all those years ago. He stood for several moments, minutes probably, and looked at each student in the eye, seemingly trying to deduce each of their respective purposes. When he had systematically completed his survey of each initiate, including Intelos, he spoke in an almost inaudibly soft but extremely forceful voice. To those of you who seek to gain great power, you must first know that you have no power without knowledge. For the truly powerful wizards of history are not remembered by the spells they cast or the enemies they defeat. They are remembered because of their knowledge, the knowledge they reveal. Knowledge, my young initiates, is the only path to power and the only concern of the wizard. For nearly all wizards, male and female alike, a substantial emotional event was required to temporarily activate the reservoir of magical talent held within. Because women tended to be in touch with their emotions on a higher level, thus feeling them more intensely at early ages, they would most often display their talent earlier in life, usually beginning in early adolescence, whereas many male wizards would not discover their talent until much later in adolescence. Intelos, however, was the exception. Being only 8 years old when he first accessed his reservoir, his untimely manifestation of the talent presented two possibilities. Either his reservoir of magic was so vast that holding it beyond 8 years was too great of a challenge for his young mind and will, or his ability to understand and assimilate knowledge on a mental level was much more advanced than the normal abilities of a pre-adolescent child. In Intelos' case, it happened to be both. All right? We're going to stop right there and pick up next time where we continue to hear about Intelos, the Grand Wizard of the University, in Chapter 4 of Convergence, Book 1 of the Dragon Within Saga. Thanks again for tuning in. The website will be in the description. And until we meet again next time, always remember to release your dragon within. Thank you.